AB5 is certainly creating a few ripples throughout the business community in California. Just today, Uber announced some new changes in response to these laws. While on the face of things, these changes certainly look good. It looks like it's going back to the good old days. You know exactly what I'm going to say. Please proceed with caution. Let's take a look at why. So, they're pretty straightforward with everything that they're promising. Now, if you receive this message, this is all probably familiar to you. A simpler picture for your earnings, you keep 75% of the rider fare, and Uber takes a 25% service fee. You have Surge coming in as multipliers, exact fares for Uber Pool trips, Quest and Boost promotions. Of course, the fine print also doesn't look too bad. On the blog post, they explicitly say that this is in response to a new law in California, the law that we know as AB5. They certainly do highlight the fact that you're working on your own terms and your work is still flexible. This is the longer post that they've put up on their blog that expands on their push notification that they sent out on the driver app. This is certainly going back to the older style of Surge. Trips with Surge will now be calculated as multiples of the trip fare. They have an example picture of how it's going to look like, and of course at the very bottom it does say your trip earnings will be based on the same Surge multiple that the rider pays. Now this is definitely an interesting one. On pool trips, you'll see the exact amount you'll earn for every complete pickup before you start the trip. So you get way more info than you did before, and down at the bottom here it does say the service fee on Uber Pool trips is based on factors such as whether you match with additional passengers and how much time on route is shared between passengers. Now here's another big one. Promotions will now offer a lower Uber service fee, only in participating cities. Let's read through this. Previously, if you drove in a city where Quest promotions were available, you were offered a payout when you completed a certain number of trips in a given period. Starting next week, if you complete a certain number of Quest trips, you'll pay Uber a lower service fee for the remaining trips you take in that period, which means that you can take home more of your earnings. For example, if you choose a 50 trip Quest and complete 75 trips, you'll get a lower service fee for the last 25 trips. We're also replacing the consecutive trips promotion with a new promotion called Boost. With Boost, you'll have the chance to lower Uber's service fee by completing trips in certain locations during busy times of day. Unlike consecutive trips, Boost won't have a minimum trip requirement. Any service fee deductions you receive through Boost will always be in addition to those you get with Quest, but the service fee will never be less than 1% of the trip fare. If you drive in participating cities, we'll send you more details about how Quest will work on Friday, January 10th, and more about how Boost will work on Sunday, January 12th. This definitely looks like something that they're trying to do to limit the overhead cost, and they've probably worked out that something like this would end up being cheaper while making you feel like you're actually taking in more, because you actually are, but you're just not getting that monetary bonus. And delivering with Uber Eats, we're launching similar features that provide upfront information on Uber Eats. This is interesting because I've seen that you can actually highlight preferred restaurants, you can star them, save them as a favorite, and it does show the pickup and the drop-off point, so you get to see the exact route that you're going to be heading towards. That definitely helps with making a decision, because there's nothing worse than taking maybe a passenger somewhere and then accepting an Eats offer, and then all of a sudden you're shuttled into an area of the city that lies in the middle of nowhere. Deadheading back 12 miles kind of sucks. So at the bottom there's also this little FAQ where you can click on a few questions and expand them, and then it'll show Uber's answers down below. There's a few interesting things here that you probably should pay attention to. Why is Uber making these changes? These features are in response to feedback from drivers and the passing of new laws in the state of California. Some changes will take some getting used to. On balance, we are confident that they will improve your experience on our platform. And the second one, are these features only available to drivers in California? Yes, these features are available to California drivers only. As with all feature launches, we will monitor the effects of the change to ensure the experience is working properly and doesn't create any unintended issues for drivers or riders. We will continue to evaluate expanding these features beyond California in the future. Now let's look at this from the lens of a pessimist. Why? Because this definitely will help as far as building a proper defense against people who want to use certain things against you, right? So let's just assume that everyone here is in a fight for survival, the drivers, the company, and the lawmakers. What we're seeing is Uber trying to attempt to comply with certain areas of AB5 so that they can say, you are an independent contractor. Check, I get that. So what happens after the grace period when they say, okay, these changes didn't work, Uber has been exempted from AB5 legislation, so we're going to dial back some of these changes because they didn't work out. On the other hand, Uber could also use this to strike a deal with the legislators and come up with a deal that kind of meets in the middle. It's still not really going to be looking good in the long run for drivers. But what this does is it buys Uber some time. Here's another angle. Take a look at my previous video and I talk about how Waymo has just exponentially increased the amount of miles driven. They went from 10 million miles driven over the space of 10 years to another 10 million miles in the space of under a year. That's an autonomous vehicle. There is no safety driver. There's a link to a video that shows exactly what happens in these vehicles. And they've recently partnered with Lyft. They're also testing in California now, and they're looking at expanding to certain other populated areas in the Midwest. Of course, it's not going to eliminate the need for lots of long distance drivers, but then you're going to see a lot of people getting cut maybe from the airport line, or just even around the downtown areas of your city. Think about how many people actually get rides from there. Quite a bit. So let's just say that the legislators and the companies meet in the middle here. They're definitely still going to be in the win category. With a combined total of 500,000 people driving for rideshare in California alone, it's a large segment of the economy that they're trying to pull money from in the form of employee designation. So while these changes might be beneficial in the short term, if you're thinking from a 5-year perspective, maybe it's just to placate the driving community for now. If you're not going to be in this business that long, great. I think I saw a stat where the majority of people only do this about 6 months and then give up on it entirely. But I think the way things are going, it's definitely going to be harder in the future for anyone to just sign up. So what does that mean for the rideshare community that already has signed up the old school way where you just show up and you apply to drive and you're approved? Don't be surprised if the requirements get higher and higher. Technically, you can still work for them and be an independent contractor, but you're going to need, let's say, a car that's only 2 or 3 or 5 years old. You can't be using anything older than that. You're going to need a specific insurance. You're going to need to have hot bags for food if you deliver food. You're going to need to have coolers ready if you're doing groceries. You're going to need lots of other things that need to be checked off. Maybe you need to go through a formal interview process now. Make sure that your background check is in order beforehand before you even start. There's definitely ways that the company can do this, and they definitely don't need to resort to strange tactics like, if you've been driving 5 years, we're just going to deactivate you without cause. As with any gift from any side of this fight, you should take a look at it and say, well, what's in it for you? So guys, let's see how 2020 goes. Let's see how this all goes down. And for those of you going back out to work tonight, stay safe out there. Be good, do well. Let's go make some money, huh?